Greetings, everyone, and welcome to, what's hopefully going to be something really awesome. It's a story that I'm writing, and, it's about pretty much basically about me, but not the actual me, I mean, Kiao me, as you. Anyway, so yeah, I figured I'd start reading the first chapter of the story that I'm writing and see how you guys like it. So, without ado, here we go. Legends of the Rift, the story of Kiao Strain. Chapter 1, The Seeds of Fate. My village was by all means not special. In fact, it was about as not special as it could get. With only a few dozen residents, barely any real food, and absolutely no shill going through it. Shill was the currency of our kingdom that takes the form of jade coins. Travelers would think that this was just another refugee camp rather than a village. That is, if we even had any travelers. Still, it was home, and despite the decrepit houses, the dusty streets, and the tens of sick and starving people, I knew it could get worse. It could always be worse. Which was why I knew that it was my time to get out of here. To get away before what was left of our village crumbled away, before it was burned down by raiders. Raids are just about as common as trees here in the Warlands. Settlements and cities somewhere in the Warlands were burned every day. You either conquered or you got conquered. Here, there simply was no in-between. Sometimes, if you looked hard enough, you could see one or two small tiny orange dots flickering along the vast open horizon. One of my neighbors, before he succumbed to the new plague, told me recently that those were villages being put to the sword and torch. After that day, and every day since, I decided I've had enough. I had to do something. For the next 3 weeks, I trained in the woods near my village, using broom handles, sticks, metal pipes, anything that could even remotely be used as a makeshift sword. I'd made up my mind about leaving, despite only being 14 years of age. I wasn't the only one, though. 2 other people near my age in the village had the same idea. We quickly became friends, and spent a lot of time training together. We all had the same plan. We wouldn't just sit by while our home was doomed to be destroyed by famine or sickness or, God's forbid, another raid. The first raid we all endured barely left anything for us to keep, most of our parents included. And orphans were just about as common as raids here in the Warlands. Me and my friends had all made a silent promise to our home. We would go and be recruited into the king's army in the grand city of Rubrin. After climbing the ranks, we would return home as heroes, with enough wealth to rebuild our home 5 times over. So, together, we trained, for weeks on end, coming home with bruises and welts from the endless sparring sessions we shared during the day. We honed our skills, often making contests to see who could last the longest in battle. We were fit, we were agile, and most importantly, we were ready. Ready for real battles, and hopefully real rewards. We kept this routine up for 2 months straight, before we started hearing whispers. Rumors from beggars who went into the grand city of Rubrin on horseback to beg for food or money, often returning with nothing. We were in what passed as our village's tavern. In reality, it was just a place where hopeless villagers would come to drown their sorrows in the sweet-tasting booze from our village's dwindling alcohol supply. The three of us were planning on how to train tomorrow, while taking shelter from the torrents of rain that pelted loudly against the leaking roof and cracked windows. It wasn't long before we saw a weary man step inside and slip into the table next to ours to gossip with his group about what he had heard in town. Naturally inclined to listen in, we learned that the Grand City was getting more and more, uneasy. The man asked the guard there what was going on, and for the low price of a few shill, the guard told him that the capital kingdom of Rubrin was about to be under attack. Obviously, that didn't surprise anyone. It was only a matter of time before the city was attacked. After all, it was a capital. But the rest of the news that we heard almost made us jump out of our chairs. The king himself had ordered his own knights to scour the city and its outskirts to find and recruit potential warriors to fight in the army. And since our village was in the outskirts of that city, well, to say we were surprised was the least to be said, I guess. The three of us were out of there and in the forest training again before another hour passed. This was going to be our big chance. The chance we had been waiting for and training for was actually happening. Another week had passed. I was sleeping in my house on an old bed that wasn't too comfortable, but it was still better than the cold floor. The sunlight was shining on my face through the cracked window near the low ceiling. It was enough to get my eyes open, but what really got me to wake up was the knocking at my door. In a minute, I was dressed up in a gray shirt, a pair of brown pants, and nearly fell down the stairs trying to get my boots on. When I slowed my breathing, I opened the door and saw my two best friends waiting outside. On the other side of the door was my friend Drew, who had brown hair, amber eyes, and a grin that always spelled trouble for him, and therefore me and my other friend, Jess. Jess had long black hair that was always up in a ponytail, and all the time we had been friends, we had never seen Jess with her hair down. Me and Drew often joked about that, and every time her only response would be to roll her bright green eyes. I knew why they were here. Those nights were finally coming. Well, good to see one of us got some sleep, Drew said as I yawned in the doorway. Well, maybe you would have gotten some sleep too if you weren't so nervous, Jess giggled. I yawned again and stepped outside next to the open barrel full of rainwater. Looking into my reflection, I saw that my face had changed since I last saw it. I guessed it was because of all the training we had gone through to prepare for this day. My face was sharper, my blue eyes weren't sunken in anymore, and my expression held a consistent look of focus. My green hair was so unruly that it started looking like green spikes were growing out of my head. I shrugged and washed my face with the rainwater. That cold water was refreshing and helped me to wake up easier. I was wiping it from my eyes when I felt a hand on my shoulder, Andrew's voice saying, "Look, they're here." I looked up and faced where he pointed, to the northern road that led to our village. I saw a group of horses trotting into our home, with their riders wearing chainmail and holding flagpoles that held the royal emblem. It was a picture of a wolf howling up at the sky, with a strange rune underneath it. That was the king's insignia. Everyone knew that symbol, which was the only reason that the other villagers didn't run for their lives in fear of a possible attack. These were the king's knights of Rubrin. Soon, the knights were off their steeds and in the village center, making a square space in the middle, four of the knights keeping the crowd of onlookers out of a makeshift arena they had made. The leader of the group stood in the middle of the square, holding two sheathed swords in one hand as he looked into the crowd. Drew, Jess, and I exchanged wide grins as this happened. We were excited for what was to come. Even if we were the only ones happy about this, most of the other villagers had looks of worry or sadness even. The king's men were here to potentially take away even more of their loved ones. The three of us walked up to the crowd and were at the edge of the makeshift arena when the knight in the center held up his hand for silence, which soon followed. He spoke in a clear, loud voice. "Greetings, one and all. We, royal knights of His Majesty the King of Rubrin, servants of the royal family, servants of the kingdom and its people, request that any and all capable fighters present themselves." Dead silence. Nobody moved. "Is there no one who will answer the call of their king?" he asked. His look of annoyance was quickly replaced by a look of surprise as the three of us crossed the barrier and stood in front of him. Well, I guess that's part one because I can't really go much farther than 15 minutes. So that's part one of chapter one of my story. I hope you guys liked it so far. And part two will be coming pretty much immediately after this one, so yeah. Anyways, take care.